Social conflicts, they can feel like these huge, chaotic messes, right? Totally unsolvable. But what if I told you there's a simple tool to actually measure them and even find a path forward? Well, today, we're going to break down a framework that does exactly that. All right, so to kick things off, let's talk about the real problem here. It's the staggering amount of waste, stuff you don't even see sometimes, that comes from social conflict. After the dust settles, people on all sides of a conflict often ask themselves this exact question. They look back at all the chaos and just realize the immense and, honestly, often pointless cost of it all. I mean, think about it. Money gets burned, trust is just gone. Bridges get broken, both literally and figuratively, and all those opportunities for real progress, they just wither away. It's this vicious downward spiral where, let's be real, in the end, everybody loses. So, okay, how do we bring some clarity to all this chaos? What if there was a simple but really effective way to actually measure what's going on? Well, that is exactly where the ASEC model comes in. Now, ASEC actually stands for a Spanish phrase that translates to actions that sum or subtract for the community. Pretty cool, right? It basically gives us a lens to look at the situation by focusing on one super critical factor. Are the actions of the key players adding value, or are they subtracting it? And in these kinds of conflicts, you're almost always going to see three main groups of stakeholders. Each one has their own interests, their own goals, and their own resources at play. Yeah, and each group brings something really critical to the table. You've got the community, with its people and its land. Then there's the company, bringing in the money and the equipment. And of course, the government, which controls public funds and infrastructure. Now, here's the key. These very same resources can either fuel the fire of conflict, or they can build the foundation for a real solution. And this right here, this really gets to the heart of the tension. On one side, you've got the company's industrial assets, the factory. But on the other, you have the community's most fundamental resources, the land and water they absolutely depend on. It is a classic clash of interests. Okay, so how does this model actually work? It's surprisingly simple, but really powerful. It uses a scale that just runs from -3 all the way up to +3. The whole scale is split into two super clear phases. The negative numbers, that's when conflict is escalating and resources are just being wasted. The positive numbers, that's when you're in a resolution phase, and those same resources are being invested for everyone's benefit. So let's start at the bottom, the absolute worst case scenario, a -3. This is total, all-out conflict. The company, the community, and the government are all actively misusing their resources, just pouring them into the fight. And the result? Everyone is losing, period. Now at -2, things are still really destructive. This is usually when two groups, typically the company and the community, are just locked in a bitter struggle. Money, time, energy, it's all just being burned on confrontation instead of any kind of cooperation. Then we get to -1. This means the conflict is definitely still active, but it's mostly being driven by just one group. Maybe one side just keeps pushing the fight while the others are actually trying to de-escalate and calm things down. Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, moving over to the positive side. A +1, that's the first step towards a real resolution. And a lot of the time, this is a unilateral move, maybe from the company, using its resources to benefit the community. It's a great start, a solid first step toward rebuilding that broken trust. Then at +2, you start to see a real partnership forming. The company is now working with either the government or the community on shared projects. You can literally see cooperation taking shape, and that progress is visible to everybody. And finally, +3. This is it, the ultimate goal, the dream scenario, really. We're talking full alignment. The company, the community, and the government are all working together, collaborating, investing their unique resources for a shared vision. It's beautiful. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But the crucial question is, what does it actually look like in the real world? Let's dive into two actual cases to see this model in action. First up, let's look at a worst-case scenario. Just imagine a situation where community protests have completely spiraled out of control, escalated into widespread violence. We're talking injuries, major damage, the whole 9 yards. So in this case, every single group is just wasting resources. The community's people, they're out protesting, not working. The company's infrastructure, it's damaged. And the government's public infrastructure, yeah, that's destroyed too. So, because we're deep in that conflict escalation phase and all three of our stakeholder groups are misusing their resources, this situation gets a clear -3 on the scale. It's total value destruction. All right, now let's completely flip the script. Let's look at a best case scenario. This is what can happen after a conflict, when all the different parties actually decide to collaborate on a new development project. Here, everyone is contributing something positive. The community offers up the land for, say, a new milk production plant. The company steps in and finances all the machinery and equipment, and the local government does its part by building the water channels needed to make it all work. So, since we're in a conflict and resolution phase and all three groups are investing their resources toward a shared goal, this one scores a perfect +3. This is what total value creation looks like. So, you see, this model does way more than just stick a number on a situation. It actually provides a clear, practical roadmap for how to move from that destructive cycle to one of value creation. At the end of the day, for any company that's operating within a community, the big goal is to earn what's called a social license to operate. That's just the ongoing acceptance from the community. And what this model shows us is that understanding how resources are being used or misused is the absolute first, most critical step to building the trust you need to earn that license. And that really leaves us with a final, kind of provocative thought, doesn't it? The ASEC model proves that we can actually quantify the dynamics of conflict and cooperation. So if we can so clearly see the choice between just wasting everything and actually investing in a better future, the real question is, what's stopping us from making the right one?